He arranged the mangoes in perfect rows, his thin fingers moving with practiced precision. Just another day at Mumbai's bustling Colaba market for Raj Patel, the 18-year-old fruit seller with eyes that seemed too old for his young face. The sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the curb, turning heads as it always did. Mr. Vikram Kapoor, CEO of NextGen Technologies, stepped out in his tailored suit that cost more than Raj's entire fruit stand. The crowd parted as he approached, his expensive leather shoes somehow avoiding every puddle and stain on the market floor. "Boy," Kapoor called out, not bothering to use Raj's name though he'd purchased mangoes from him weekly for months. "I need 24 of your best. And try not to mess up the change this time." Raj nodded respectfully, beginning to select the ripest fruits. His worn calculator lay untouched beside his wooden cash box. He didn't need it. Numbers had always been his friends, more reliable than people who judged him by his faded t-shirt and calloused hands. "That will be 480 rupees, sir," Raj said softly, after mentally calculating the total. Kapoor handed him a 1,000-rupee note with a smirk. "Let's see if you can handle this without your little machine." The crowd around them grew quiet. Everyone knew what was coming. They'd seen this game before, the wealthy businessman testing the poor fruit seller, looking for entertainment in his struggles. 520 rupees is your change, sir," Raj said, counting out the notes with quick, precise movements. Kapoor frowned, looking at the mangoes. "Wait, I count only 23 here. You're trying to cheat me." Raj recounted quickly. "No, sir. There are 24. 6 rows of 4. Are you calling me a liar, boy?" Kapoor's voice rose, drawing more attention. "Can't even count properly, and you think you can run a business?" A crowd began to gather. Mrs. Sharma from the textile stand shook her head sadly. Mr. Gupta from the tea stall muttered something under his breath. Kapoor made a show of counting each mango individually, his manicured finger pointing at each fruit. 24, he finally admitted, but without an apology. "Though I'm surprised you got it right. Last week you couldn't even calculate a simple percentage discount." What Kapoor didn't know was that Raj spent his nights by candlelight, solving complex equations in a tattered notebook hidden under his mattress. He didn't know that when Raj arranged his fruits in geometric patterns, he was actually visualizing mathematical principles that would astound university professors. "Let's make this interesting," Kapoor announced, his voice carrying across the now silent marketplace. "A simple test to see if our fruit seller here understands anything about real mathematics." He pulled out a smartphone, an expensive model Raj recognized from advertisements. "Here's a business scenario for you. If you invest 50,000 rupees at 8% monthly compound interest, then take a loan of 25,000 rupees at 12% annual interest after 6 months. What's your net position after exactly 1 year?" The crowd murmured. This wasn't simple arithmetic. This was complex financial calculation, deliberately chosen to humiliate. In the back of the gathering crowd, an elderly man with silver-rimmed glasses watched with growing interest. Professor Adifir Sharma, retired mathematics teacher from Mumbai University, noticed how Raj's eyes focused, how his fingers twitched slightly, as if calculating in the air. "Would you like paper to work this out?" Kapoor offered, his tone falsely generous. "No need," Raj replied softly. What happened next would stun everyone at the marketplace and change both their lives forever. 64,157 rupees and 23 paise, Raj said, his voice quiet but certain. The marketplace fell completely silent. Kapoor stared at him, confusion replacing his smug expression. "That's impossible," he said, tapping frantically on his phone's calculator app. "You can't possibly." He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening as he verified the answer. "That's correct." A whisper moved through the crowd. Professor Sharma stepped closer, his academic curiosity fully engaged now. "Perhaps a lucky guess," Kapoor suggested, recovering quickly. "Or a memorized calculation." His voice hardened. "Let's try something more challenging." He created a new scenario, more complex than the first. 75,000 rupees initial investment, 7.5% monthly return, and a 40,000 rupee loan at 11% after 10 months. Calculate the net profit after exactly 19 months. This was no longer a simple problem. It required multiple compound interest calculations with different time periods and rates. Even with a financial calculator, most people would need time to work through it step by step. Raj closed his eyes briefly. The marketplace held its collective breath. 126,032 rupees and 47 paise, he said after just 12 seconds. Kapoor frantically entered the numbers into his app. The calculation took nearly a minute as he carefully input each variable. When he finished, his face had lost all color. "That's correct to the paise," he whispered, looking at Raj as if seeing him for the first time. "Excuse me," Professor Sharma said, stepping forward. "Young man, how did you perform those calculations so quickly?" Before Raj could answer, Kapoor interrupted, his professional curiosity now overcoming his earlier condescension. "This must be some kind of trick," he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "It's not a trick," Raj said simply. "Numbers just make sense to me." Determined to expose Raj's limits, Kapoor pulled out his laptop from his leather briefcase. "Let's try something from my company's actual operations." He showed Raj a complex financial model, columns of data, graphs, and mathematical formulas embedded in spreadsheet cells. "This is a statistical analysis of market volatility patterns," he explained. "We're trying to predict investment risk across multiple sectors during economic downturns. Based on these historical patterns, what is the probability distribution if the primary indicator falls by 7.8%? Professor Sharma leaned in, adjusting his glasses. "This is doctoral-level financial mathematics," he said. "Stochastic calculus and probability theory." A few people in the crowd began to protest that this was unfair, but Raj raised his hand slightly, silencing them. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the laptop. Kapoor nodded, surprised. Raj had never used a computer before, but he understood the concept of a trackpad. His movements were awkward at first as he scrolled through the data, studying each section carefully. After several minutes of intense concentration, Raj began to modify formulas in the spreadsheet, working with growing confidence. "Your model has an underlying assumption that these 5 sectors behave independently during economic stress. But that's not accurate," Raj explained. "When the banking sector experiences volatility beyond this threshold, it creates a cascading effect on manufacturing with a time delay." He turned back to the laptop, his initial awkwardness with the technology forgotten as he focused on the problem. "If you adjust your model to account for these dependencies, the probability distribution changes significantly." After several minutes, Raj stepped back from the laptop. "The highest risk is actually in consumer goods, not finance as your original model suggested. The probability of a severe downturn in that sector is 68.7%, not the 31.4% your model predicted." Kapoor stared at the screen, then at his phone where he was receiving real-time messages from his office. "My team says they say your adjustment to the model aligns with recent market behavior that we couldn't explain." His voice had lost all its earlier condescension, replaced by genuine wonder. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Market vendors who had initially mocked Raj now looked on with newfound respect. "Where did you learn this?" Kapoor asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Books from the municipal library, videos at the internet cafe when I could afford it," Raj replied. "Mostly, I just see patterns in numbers that others don't." Professor Sharma stepped forward, his eyes bright with excitement. "Young man, I believe what we're witnessing here is something extraordinary. Not just calculation ability, but genuine mathematical intuition of the highest order." Raj stood quietly amid his humble fruit display, no longer invisible. The mind he had hidden for years was finally being seen. "I'd like to see how you approach a purely theoretical problem," Professor Sharma said, pulling a small notebook from his pocket, something without practical application. He wrote a sequence of equations that made no sense to most onlookers, but caused Raj's eyes to widen with interest. "This relates to prime number distribution," Sharma explained. "Specifically, finding patterns in the gaps between consecutive primes." Raj stared at the notation, his mind racing. This wasn't business mathematics or practical calculation. This was pure theory, the kind found in advanced research journals. I'm not sure, Raj said hesitantly, studying the equations. For the first time, doubt showed clearly on his face. I've read about prime numbers, but this approach is unfamiliar. Kapoor felt a mixture of relief and disappointment. Perhaps there were limits to this uncredentialed genius after all. Professor Sharma nodded encouragingly. Take your time. Consider a different angle if the notation confuses you. Raj closed his eyes. The marketplace noise faded away as he retreated into his mind where numbers had always made sense. He thought about prime numbers, those special integers divisible only by themselves in one. He'd been fascinated by them since childhood, finding and memorizing them, looking for patterns. The crowd grew restless as minutes passed with Raj standing motionless, eyes closed. Some began to drift away, assuming the show was over. Wait, Raj said suddenly, his eyes snapping open. The approach in your equation assumes linearity in distribution probability. But what if? He reached for the professor's notebook, turning to a blank page. His hand moved with surprising speed as he sketched a different approach, not using standard mathematical notation, but creating his own visual system of patterns and relationships. Professor Sharma leaned closer, confusion giving way to astonishment. I've never seen this approach before. It's how I think about numbers, Raj explained, continuing to draw. When I was 12, I didn't know the formal symbols, so I created my own way to visualize relationships. What appeared on the page wasn't conventional mathematics. It was a geometric representation of number theory, circles, lines, and patterns forming a visual language that somehow expressed complex mathematical concepts. Instead of looking for algebraic relationships between consecutive primes, Raj continued, his voice growing stronger. I see them as points in geometric space, with distances forming patterns when mapped properly. Professor Sharma's hand trembled slightly as he grasped the implications. You've developed a form of visual number theory independently? His voice was barely above a whisper. This is revolutionary. Kapoor couldn't follow the mathematics, but he recognized the expression on the professor's face, the look of someone witnessing something unprecedented. Do you have more of these insights? Professor Sharma asked. Raj hesitated, then reached into his back pocket and pulled out a worn notebook. I write down ideas at night, when everyone's asleep. The professor opened it carefully. The pages were filled with dense notations, diagrams, and equations, some in standard mathematical form, others in Raj's unique visual language. He looked up, his eyes wide. This is extraordinary. There are concepts here that align with current research in several fields. He showed a page to Kapoor, who couldn't understand mathematics, but recognized the significance of the professor's reaction. You developed all this by yourself? Kapoor asked. Raj nodded. Mathematics helps me make sense of the world. When I can't sleep, I work on these problems. A young woman stepped forward from the crowd, Priya Mehta, a computer science student. I've talked with him about my programming assignments, she said. He solved an algorithm optimization problem in minutes that my entire class had struggled with for weeks. Others began to speak up. The owner of the bookstore mentioned how Raj would spend hours reading advanced textbooks without buying them. The internet cafe manager recalled how he occasionally let Raj use a computer for free when business was slow. Each story painted the same picture, a hidden genius working in plain sight, whose mind had developed in isolation through sheer determination and natural ability. Kapoor stood silent, his worldview crumbling and rebuilding itself as he faced an undeniable truth. Genius existed everywhere, even in places his privileged perspective had taught him to overlook. All this time, he said finally, gesturing to the humble fruit stand, you've been selling mangoes when you could be changing mathematics. Raj looked down at his hands, fruit seller's hands, calloused and stained. My family depends on this income. Dreams don't pay for medicine or school books. The simple statement, delivered without self-pity, struck Kapoor with the force of revelation. This extraordinary mind had been constrained not by ability, but by circumstance, by the basic necessities of survival that his own privilege had always taken for granted. In that moment, standing amid mangoes and mathematics, something fundamental changed in how Kapoor saw the world. "Your family," Kapoor said, the words coming slowly as a new understanding formed in his mind. "Tell me about them." Raj hesitated, unused to anyone of Kapoor's status showing interest in his personal life. "My father was a construction worker. His back was injured in an accident 2 years ago. My mother cleans houses, but her arthritis is getting worse. I have 2 younger sisters still in school." "And you support them all through this fruit stand?" Professor Sharma asked gently. Raj nodded. "I left school when I was 15, after my father's accident. He paused, then straightened his shoulders slightly. "I was the top mathematics student." Professor Sharma closed Raj's notebook carefully. "What you've shown us today goes beyond being a good student. Your approach to prime number distribution alone could be groundbreaking research." Kapoor had been quiet, his phone forgotten in his hand. Now he looked up with sudden decision. "This fruit stand," he said, gesturing to the simple wooden structure. "How much do you make a month?" Raj named a figure that made Kapoor blink. It was less than what the businessman spent on a single business dinner. "And if you could do anything, if money wasn't a concern, what would you choose?" Kapoor asked. "I would study," Raj replied without hesitation. "Learn the proper language of mathematics. And," he glanced at his worn notebook, "see if my ideas have any real value." Kapoor turned to Professor Sharma. If this young man had formal education, proper guidance, what might he accomplish? The professor's eyes lit up. With a mind like his, there's no telling. He's already developed original approaches, without any training. With the right education. He shook his head in wonder at the possibilities. Kapoor made a decision. "I'm establishing a scholarship immediately. Full education costs, plus a stipend equivalent to your current income for your family." Raj stared at him, disbelieving. "Why would you do this for me? An hour ago, you thought I couldn't even count mangoes." "An hour ago, I was a fool," Kapoor replied simply. "I judged your intelligence by your occupation, your worth by your clothes." He gestured to his expensive suit. "I thought these things made me superior." He looked around the marketplace, then back at Raj. "But true intelligence clearly isn't confined to people who look or live like me. Sometimes the most extraordinary minds are selling fruit, waiting to be recognized." As if summoned by the commotion, a young girl in a school uniform pushed through the crowd. "Bia," she called, looking worried. "Someone said there was trouble at your stand." "Nita, my sister," Raj explained, putting a reassuring arm around her shoulders. "No trouble, just unexpected changes." He introduced her to Professor Sharma and Kapoor, explaining in simple terms what had happened. Her eyes grew wider with each detail. "You mean, you won't have to sell fruit anymore? You can go back to school?" she asked, hope and confusion mixing in her voice. "It seems so," Raj replied, still processing the transformation himself. "Wait until I tell Amma and Papa." Nita exclaimed. "And my teachers. They always ask about you. Say what a shame it was you had to leave school." Professor Sharma smiled. "The university will want to assess your knowledge properly, but based on what I've seen today, I believe we can create a specialized program for you." Kapoor was already on his phone again, this time making arrangements rather than testing theories. "The educational trust is being established now. We'll need bank account details for your family." The fruit stand that had been Raj's world for 3 years suddenly looked different. Not an endpoint, but a beginning, a place where his extraordinary journey had started. "There will be challenges," Professor Sharma cautioned. "Your unconventional background, your self-taught methods. Some in academia may be skeptical at first." "I'm used to skepticism," Raj replied with a small smile. "I've spent years being underestimated." A vegetable vendor who had watched the entire scene unfold approached, extending her hand to Raj. "We'll miss you here," she said simply. "But this is where you belong." She gestured toward the university's towers visible in the distance. Others came forward. The chai seller who had provided Raj with tea on cold mornings, customers who had haggled with him over prices, fellow vendors who had shared the daily struggles of marketplace life. Each offered congratulations and genuine good wishes. In that moment, Raj understood something profound. His transformation wasn't just about moving from one world to another. It was about bringing his worlds together, the practical wisdom of the marketplace and the theoretical brilliance of his mathematical mind. As they prepared to leave for the university, Raj paused, looking back at his simple fruit stand. He reached down and picked up a perfect mango, the last one remaining. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "there's mathematics even in how fruits grow. The Fibonacci sequence in the arrangement of seeds, the golden ratio in their shapes." He smiled at Kapoor and Professor Sharma. "Maybe I was studying patterns all along, just not in the way anyone expected." 6 months later, a small auditorium at Mumbai University was filled to capacity. Students, professors, and visitors listened intently as Raj Patel explained his groundbreaking approach to prime number distribution. His simple clothes had been replaced by a modest button-down shirt, but his eyes still carried the same quiet intensity they had at the fruit stand. In the front row, Professor Sharma nodded proudly. Beside him sat Mr. Kapoor, who had taken time away from running his technology company to attend this presentation. His expression showed something beyond satisfaction, a genuine wonder at what had unfolded since that fateful day in the marketplace. By visualizing prime numbers in this geometric framework, Raj explained, drawing his unique patterns on the whiteboard, we can predict certain clustering behaviors that weren't observable through traditional methods. As he completed his presentation, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. A visiting mathematician from Cambridge University approached the whiteboard, examining Raj's equations with reverent interest. "Your approach is revolutionary," she said. "We'd like to incorporate it into our curriculum." After the presentation, Raj rejoined his family in the university courtyard. His father, now receiving proper medical treatment, stood taller. His mother wiped away proud tears. His sisters beamed with pride, both now enrolled in special science programs themselves. "Your paper on computational efficiency is being implemented at 3 major technology companies," Kapoor informed him, "including mine." He smiled. "It's reduced processing time by 37%. But Raj's attention was drawn to a small group of young students from underprivileged backgrounds who had been invited through Kapoor's new foundation. They stood nervously at the edge of the courtyard, clearly intimidated by the university environment. "Excuse me," he said, walking over to them. "Did you really used to sell fruit?" A boy about 12 years old asked hesitantly. "I did," Raj confirmed, "for 3 years. And I was proud of that work. It supported my family when they needed me." "But now you're famous," a girl said. "You've changed completely." Raj considered this. "My circumstances have changed," he agreed. "But who I am hasn't. I still see the world through patterns and numbers. I still value hard work and family." He gestured toward the university buildings. "This is just a different kind of marketplace." Across the courtyard, Kapoor watched this interaction with interest. He turned to Professor Sharma. "When I challenged him that day, I never imagined this outcome." "The greatest discoveries often begin with challenges," Sharma replied, "though perhaps with less arrogance next time." His eyes twinkled with gentle humor. Kapoor accepted the subtle rebuke with grace. "My company now has talent scouts visiting markets, construction sites, and small villages across India. We found 7 individuals with exceptional abilities in various fields." He looked thoughtful. "I keep wondering how many brilliant minds we've overlooked throughout history simply because they didn't fit our narrow image of what intelligence looks like." As the sun began to set over the university campus, Raj reflected on the journey of the past 6 months, from arranging mangoes to arranging equations on prestigious whiteboards, from being invisible to being celebrated. "Sometimes," he said to the gathered group, "I still visit the old marketplace, just to remember where this journey began." "And what do you see there now?" Kapoor asked. Raj smiled. "Patterns, possibilities, people whose stories haven't been fully told yet." He looked at the young students who represented his own past, and perhaps his greatest contribution to the future. Genius exists everywhere, Sometimes it's selling fruit, sometimes it's driving rickshaws, sometimes it's cleaning floors. He picked up a fallen leaf from the courtyard ground, examining its mathematical structure with the same wonder he once applied to his mangoes. The only difference, Raj said quietly, is whether anyone bothers to truly look. If this story of hidden genius touched your heart, remember that extraordinary talent exists in unexpected places, often obscured by circumstance rather than absence of ability. Who might you be underestimating in your daily life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and join our community celebrating the remarkable human potential that surrounds us all.